Good evening and welcome to the Winthrop Town Council meeting, May 2nd, 2023. We're in the Harvey Hearing room. For anybody on Zoom, the phone number is 305-224-1968. The ID is 889-0382-0046 #. Roll call, please.
Counsel Honan. Counsel Pasillo. Counsel Munson.
Here.
Counsel Belcher.
Here.
Counsel DeMarco. Counsel Flockhart.
Here.
Counsel Aiello.
Here.
Vice President Ruggiero.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. Led by Vice President Ruggiero.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes from the April 18th meeting have been circulated. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Councilor Belcher, second by Councilor Aiello. Any discussions on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. General information and recommendations. I would like to take a minute to talk a little bit about the fire we had at 91 Veterans Road on Friday, April 21st, 2023. Approximately noon, the town of Winthrop Fire and Police Departments received a call for a fire at 91 Veterans Road. The fire was quickly elevated to 4 alarms, but thanks to the hard work of the Winthrop Fire Department, along with mutual aid from Chelsea, Revere, Lynn, Everett, Malden, Saugus, Massport, and Boston Fire Departments, the fire was contained and no lives were lost. 4 residents were transported to local hospitals, 1 for minor facial burns, 3 others for smoke inhalation. All 4 were treated and released. Our fire and police departments are to be commended for their quick response and hard work to protect the residents who reside at the executive apartments at 91 Veterans Road. After the fire was put out, the residents were faced with the unenviable truth that 64 apartment units were no longer available. They had nowhere to live. Thanks to the quick thinking and response from Winthrop public safety officials, specifically Deputy Fire Chief Stephen Calandro and Police Chief Terry Delahanty, the senior center was open for displaced families, and the Red Cross was notified. Winthrop's Medical Reserve Corps, or the MRC, was an incredible resource at the senior center. Jeannie Maggio, who was always at the forefront in any type of emergency, and her staff, including Rick and Kathy Savage, Mary Lou Cooney, and Barbara Harvey, were instrumental with their help. Among them, we had a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant, a communications expert, and an animal specialist, and they were all invaluable with their help. For the remainder of the day on Friday and into the evening hours, the owner of the building, Joe DeVillio, and property manager Brian Bushnack worked closely with the members of our CLEAR team and Public Health Department along with the Red Cross to ensure that the affected families were placed in a hotel for the weekend, along with debit cards from the American Red Cross to cover meals for the weekend. The building owner and property manager extended the stays to cover the families for the remainder of the week through Friday the 28th. During that week, the town of Winthrop was in contact with all the families and also with MEMA to coordinate an available resource event on Friday the 28th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Many state agencies were available to speak with displaced family and let them know what resources were available. The town, through its health department, has also arranged for local landlords to be in attendance to let the residents know what apartments they had available for rent. Through generous donations from the Winthrop Foundation and others, the town was able to secure hotel rooms at a local hotel for the next 2 weeks for 25 families that have not yet found another apartment. We are in communication with those families as we work to find them another apartment. Special thanks to the following individuals who have gone above and beyond during this difficult time. Firstly, our town manager, Tony Marino, who was just an unbelievable asset to all throughout the weekend and still doing all he can on behalf of our town to help all the displaced individuals. Lieutenant Sacco, Jajarian, Jane Rupp, Barbara Pucci, Sarada Murray, Dorothy Charles, Anna Jansen, Meredith Hurley, Winthrop Fire Department, and Deputy Chief Stephen Calandro and Fire Chief Scott Wiley, Winthrop Police Department, and Deputy Chief John Goodwin and Chief Terry Delahanty, the American Red Cross, and the MRC, again, Jeannie Maggio, Rick Savage, Kathy Savage, Mary Lou Cooney, and Barbara Harvey. And I would be remiss to say that there were many counselors at the senior center on that day, and our hearts go out to all the individuals that were displaced. But again, it shows what an incredible town we have and how close and how quickly we come to the aid of those in need. So thank you for that, and thank you to all that helped out. Public hearings, we have none this evening. Public comment. This is the first round of public comment. Anybody on Zoom?
Nope.
Yes, Mr. Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jack Dowd, Precinct 1. I need glasses for this. The Independent Order of Oddfellows is a non-political and non-sectarian international fraternal order of Oddfellows. John Munson has had secret political meetings in the Oddfellows home, and he has stated that he will continue to have these secret meetings. The premise of his last secret meeting was to build a boutique hotel on Ingleside Park, as he mentioned at that meeting. Mr. President, you were there. Councilor Munson has no respect for those who have come before him, especially the Oddfellows and the people who donated the land, which is now Ingleside Park. Concerning the survey that was produced by the town, somebody. The survey of the property at 141 Pauline Street is inadequate. The property at this location cannot be sold without a survey that shows meets and bounds and deeded property information. What is shown on the pages I received is an outline or an overlay of the property. Concerning the pathways that are going to be on the agenda, the pathways and stairways that are going to be on the agenda tonight, new business. And I texted some, or emailed somebody, a group, I guess, because they were asking questions about concerning the pathways. And in the email, I'm going to read it as I wrote it on the emails. A thorough review is needed for each pathway and stairway. The cost of maintaining these areas should be evaluated on an individual basis. There are town sewer lines under many of these stairways and pathways, and the cost for keeping these pipes in working order has to be determined. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think a lot of that information is what we are going to be talking about later. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
Bill
And I would,
Schmidt,
I'm sorry, Bill, before you start, just in response to a little bit, and I think it was mischaracterized in some way to myself, Councilor Munson has held meetings before. He always, this is not a question and answer
Put it on
period.
the agenda. This
This
is
is-
not a discussion. This is a public
Yep.
comment. If you want to talk about what you're talking about, put it on the agenda for a future meeting.
How many times have you made a comment and asked for a response? I'm trying to respond to your comment. Do you not want a response?
I wanna
Okay,
make a
thank you.
public
Mr.
comment.
Schmidt?
Thank you.
Bill Schmidt, Precinct 5. I will offer public comment. I have a different perspective on what Mr. Dowd has talked about. I believe Councilor Munson has had four, if I'm not incorrect, 4 conversations with the councils, which each of the councils have been to. I think you had 2 in each one, so you had all your colleagues there. They were advertised in the transcript. They were on the town.
Manager's blog.
Winthrop Weekly, so they're not in secret. Anybody in the public is able to get there and go there. There's no political discussion in terms of elections or campaigns or anything. These are informational meetings, and I think, Jack, you've been there as well, so I don't think there's been any money raised, any discussion of elections, so to characterize them as political, I think
And how many counselors are at each meeting?
I believe you've had 2 at each one.
Correct. So there's 3 counselors total?
Right, so it's
Okay.
not in violation.
Thank
of
you.
open meeting. So I think they're helpful. People can come and discuss anything they want. So I have a different view of those. I just
That's
wanted to
fine.
put that in
Thank
the
you.
record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone on Zoom?
Nope.
All right, we will have a second round of public comment. Correspondence. I have received many correspondence regarding the public ways about people. I'd probably say, I think all of them, maybe there was one that was in doubt, but pretty much all of them regarding the request to keep the public ways as a part of Winthrop. And that's the only correspondence I've received. I don't know.
Yep, that's all I've
if there's
received is on
Anything
the
else?
pathways.
Any other counselors?
Some of those
Counsel.
emails tagged on other subjects like middle school.
Okay, I didn't see that, okay. All right, committee reports, appointments, commissions, and committees. Counselor Belcher?
Thank you. We finalized the evaluation form for the town manager and the town clerk. That's been circulated to all the counselors. We need them back by the 8th, so I encourage everybody to complete those. And we will be meeting with the town manager and town clerk on the 9th.
All right. And we will stay with Counselor Belcher for the Finance Commission report.
Thank you. So the Finance Commission met last Tuesday with Superintendent Howard. She presented the needs-based budget that was voted on by the school committee. There was a shift this year for how the school does their budgeting. About 60% of the town's funds were shifted all the way to the school to include their benefits and some administrative costs. It was an increase of $9.2 million on their end, but they were also given the resources to handle that. This is the first time in 30 years that the Chapter 70 allocation, the methodology has changed. So there was an increase of over 1.7 million, I believe, to the town of Winthrop. We've noticed a significant increase in ELL students in our school system that's put a strain on the budget. So, as I said, the school committee voted on a needs-based budget, and we're 1.5 million short for a needs-based budget based on the allocation for a level-funded budget, which means it's the same services and additional mandates. We're 487,000 different. The next meeting of the Finance Commission is Thursday, when we'll meet with Finance and the Treasurer Collector.
Thank you. Any other subcommittees meet? No. All right, let's go on to the school committee report, which I will piggyback on a lot of what Councilor Belcher said, but the school committee did meet a week ago yesterday. And the major item on the agenda was to pass a budget for 23-24, which they did. They passed a needs-based budget of roughly $36,644,000. As Councilor Belcher said, there is a change in how the town and the town manager chose to do the budget this year, and basically took everything associated with the schools and put it in their budget. So again, transparency, and it's good to let everybody know what's going on. When that was done, the town manager realized that it was basically a 60-40 split, and that's how the money was allocated. So the allocation for the schools in the budget that we're going to be presented is roughly $35,121,000, which is a difference of about, like Councilor Belcher said, about 1.5 million off the needs-based. The school committee always does 2 budgets, and they'll do a needs-based budget because that's what they should be doing. They need to be looking out for the children of our town, and they need to be giving what they think is best for those children to thrive and be well-educated. We also do a needs-based budget, which I mean a level service budget, which again, like Councilor Belcher mentioned, is basically giving the same level of services that we gave in the prior year, along with additional mandates that are imposed by the state, which are pretty substantial on a year in and year out basis. So with that level needs budget, level service budget, the schools are still roughly a little under $500,000 shy of their goal. And I'm sure the superintendent will work with what she has. They will still have continued meetings with the Finance Commission, and we will vote on a budget in the second meeting in June on the 13th. The other item of interest, I guess, on the school committee budget this past week was voting on the school calendar for the 23-24. I can't even believe I'm saying that already, but the 23-24 school calendar was voted on. And I'll give the two most important dates that people want to know. The first day of school for children will be Wednesday, August 30th. And I believe they will start, the teachers will start, I believe Monday, Tuesday. The kids will start Wednesday, Thursday. They will be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday for the Labor Day weekend. And they will, the last day of school is scheduled to be June 11th, which is also pretty early. And of course, that's dependent on snow days and such. So that is a recap of the school committee meeting. We will now go to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to give an update on the TIP project. As we advertised today, there'll be a public hearing at the next meeting with regard to the easements. We have to advertise the hearing. It'll be for the notice of taking for the council to vote, the, taking the easements for the use of the Mass DOT project. And then once that's voted, then we send out a notice of taking letter to all the people impacted with the easements, about 60 or so. And then there'll be information in there where they can come pick up their payment, when it'll be filed with the registry of deeds, the Mylar plans, all the details with regard to the Revere Street TIP project. That vote will still allow us to stay on track to put the project out to bid in June and keep us on track for the start of next spring, summertime, 2024. With regard to the ferry work has been completed. The engines have been programmed. We are waiting to get our boat down to Gloucester right now for the Coast Guard inspection. They gotta pull the boat out of the water, so we're in line. They've got a bunch of boats being out to do the Coast Guard inspection, so we're just waiting for our turn. Once that gets out, they'll clean the hull at that point, do the hull inspection, get the Coast Guard inspection done, and then we'll be ready to go. We're shooting for, towards the end of May rather, for a realistic time frame for that to happen. We're excited about that, and I know everybody's excited to see the ferry back up and running. I attended a Metro Mayor's meeting yesterday where the Transportation Secretary was there, Gina Fiandaca, and the new META manager, Mr. Ing, was there as well. They spoke about all the projects they do, and Mr. Ing was very impressive. They hadn't met him yet. He's certainly up for the task. He knows he's got a lot of work in front of him, but he spoke to the group, and I was very impressed. So looking forward to some all the improvements he can bring to the META. So we're looking forward to that. And then thank you to everybody. Seems like a couple weeks ago now, but it was Governor Haley came to town. We had a good event over at the Belle Isle Marsh. Talked about the MVP program, MVP 2.0, as she like to call it. That program is being launched. We were lucky enough to be there, and we have our application ready to go, and we'll go in this applications are due May 4th, this Thursday. So ours is Rachel's been working on that, and we'll be ready to have our MVP application in, along with our Green Communities Grant application, which is due on the same day. So. And then just to wrap up, it's the rest of the time frame has been, dealing with the fire, the impacts, setting up lodging for the residents, dealing with the other things that come up with that. So I know that the team is full steam ahead working on it. That list that the council president talked about, well, we did get 25 rooms. We're looking at long term. That list is probably down to 15 or 16 now of people that don't have apartments yet. So we're still reaching out to local landlords and trying to put them in touch and coordinate housing so they can have a place to stay, because the building on 91 Veterans will probably be down for about a year while they do code upgrades and improve the building and be ready to rent again. So, and that's it. I'm certainly open for questions.
Before I go to questions, I will say there was a vehicle accident, I believe, in that 270 to 280 block of Pleasant Street, right, around that shop bend. And just, I'd like to get some clarification, because I know that we had applied for and were granted a grant, so more or less to put my understanding is that they're the speed limit signs, basically, and there'll be 5, 6, 7 of them throughout Pleasant Street. Which is great, but I'm hoping that we're even going beyond that and trying, and I'm sure you have some ideas of things that we will be able to do to make that area a little safer.
Yep. A bunch of ideas are being kicked around right now, and like some sort of a small retaining wall, nice wood one or something along to protect that house, bollards maybe or something like that. There's been an idea thrown out, a resident came in the other day, potentially, well, we don't maybe wanna do speed bumps or anything like that, you know, potentially like you have on the highway, sort of a rumble strip or something that would indicate on the road when you're driving over it, your tires would shake a little bit when you're coming up to that corner. So those were some good ideas that wouldn't impact plowing too much and things like that, so we're looking at it, Steve and I have talked about it, so, you know, more to come on that, but we're definitely looking to put a plan.
And the grant has been awarded, but
Grant's
are
been
we out to
awarded, but we had
bid?
to put it up to bid, and that bid went out, it'll be advertised May 15th, by the time we get all the process done, and then Mass DOT requirements, and then, once that's done, we will be able to order them. We know, pretty sure what company's gonna bid on it, and hopefully they'll be the low bidder, and then we'll be able to move forward with it. So,
Great. Council Flockhart.
I'd like to repeat again that light-up sign that gives you your speed that was put on Revere Street,
Yeah.
just at the beginning of Winthrop, has been extremely effective.
Yes, and that's what we're looking to put up there as well, as soon as we get the money to go.
So just for clarification, there's 8 of them, right? Signs
Yeah.
coming in, and they can be deployed anywhere along
It's attached right
145,
to a
et
sign,
cetera.
yeah.
So the deployment of that as well.
Washington Street.
Yeah, Washington Street and all the way around to
Sure.
the exit into Revere as well.
Correct.
So any part of 145
Yeah.
is eligible. So we should, there are speeding problems everywhere.
Oh,
Like,
without
that's a
doubt.
particular problem. All of Washington Street, Pleasant Street is a big speeding problem. I mean, Mike DiLucio was talking about coming home at night, and he's driving at 30 miles an hour in 25-mile-an-hour zone, and people passing him
Oh, yeah.
across a double yellow line. I
Yeah.
mean, it is an epidemic that we have really got to do something about. So I would, I think the speed signs are great, I think bollards are great, but we really have to have a traffic calming set of solutions across the town for all the places where we're seeing this stuff. Frankly, the police department needs to do more speed traps. I don't know how we get them to do it, but there's nothing like someone out there with a speed gun and writing tickets and the word getting around on that stuff. I know they do some of it, I know they're shorthanded,
Yeah.
but we need to really have this be a holistic solution, because people are gonna continue to get injured and worse.
And we've also got our,
Yeah.
traffic signs, the larger ones with the speed in them, the trailers that we're gonna deploy once, Steve's obviously put some of the crosswalks in. So along with those crosswalks, we're gonna deploy the, traffic signs we talked about.
Yeah,
The speed trailers along
Yeah,
with that.
speed trailers.
So once we have the new crosswalks in, when the lines are
Yeah.
striped, then we'll have the speed trailers in there as
Yeah,
well.
and I think we need, the more crosswalks we can have in on these streets, it gives a signal to drivers that people actually live here, that this
Without
is
a doubt.
not a speedway for them to
Yep.
just get through town and get out of town. Somewhat related to that, I noticed in the capital plan that, that sections of Route 145 are due for repaving.
Yep.
Pleasant Street, Washington Street, that end of town. There's also a call for projects for Mass Highway Department for the 5-year capital program.
We're
Is it
putting
our
them together
intent
right now.
to put a request in for them to do the repaving? That could then free up money to spend on other things.
That's a longer project, so certain areas need to be done, but we are putting in the next tip project request.
Yeah.
That'll, get us from Belle Isle Marsh back to, where Steve said the next line is, so.
Okay.
We've talked to CHA and they're putting together that scope so we can get on the tip list.
But MHD has a pocket of just repaving money, so the simple money we use for stripping and repaving, not altering curb lines, not doing any of that, they've got a bucket of money in their capital program, and maybe we could,
We can ask for it, sure.
we should ask for some of that, and then relieve that money to do more of other stuff, whatever we decide to do. And then the last thing, I hate to be on repeat here, but talking about the TIP project and all that. It's gonna be a hugely disruptive project.
Mhm.
It is one of the central arteries of this town.
Yep.
People cut through the town, people come to the town, people leave from this town, all along that road, heavy traffic.
Yeah.
We've talked in the past about the need to communicate, the need to make sure everybody understands what's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, what alternative routes are, et cetera. I have pointed out in the past, places where 145 is shut down, so in the the late fall, down by Pleasant Washington Street area, there was some utility work. A failure to put notices on our website, a failure to put notices in the transcript, a failure to communicate with anybody except for the 25 people who live in front of the cut. It's a regional road. There are people going to MW area, et cetera. We have to understand where we live. We're not an isolated peninsula. It's happening again. The lower end of Pleasant Street, blocked off, from what I can understand, and I read the transcript, I look at the website, I look at a whole bunch of things. It's not baked in my brain why that road is being closed down, what the hours of closure are, how long this is gonna last, and it is creating people cutting around through traffic in other neighborhoods. There are places where you could relieve some of the congestion by putting a police officer up at Pleasant and Main, because nobody's coming up Pleasant anymore. You could turn the green signal, override, and move people out of town a little bit easier to get rid of some of the craziness that's happening because of people's frustration. We need to communicate. It is just not fair to citizens of this town that we don't know how to communicate with people and have reasonable deployment of police. I'm not blaming the individual officers, I'm blaming the failure to have a full detour plan posted, tested, and understood by everybody, and then a police deployment consistent with that. We can't get it right on these small projects. Revere Street is gonna be a mess. And this council should be condemned for not speaking out to make sure that it's not a mess. So I don't know what the answer is. I know it's not you,
No, it's.
but
we'll get it done.
we really gotta shape up for this stuff. It's just not acceptable.
Councilor
I will
Mun-
stop there.
Councilor Munson.
I appreciate, Mr. Iola, for your commentary, and I agree that our traffic calming needs to happen. What I wanted to point out was a couple things. One, I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts and for all the different agencies and public safety agencies that actually went above and beyond for the 91 Veterans Road fire. I called you somewhere in the throes of it, and you managed to pick up and call me back, and you were right in the middle of negotiating with the Red Roof Inn and like extended stay America. I was just, that's not normal, is from what I gather. You don't, like, if we were to have a fire in my house, you wouldn't see a lot of people coming through and trying to like save the day, but this was a community event and you came, and I just want to applaud Winthrop and you specifically, as well as all the different agencies, for going above and beyond for protecting our citizens. And I really do feel it was like a big moment for us, and thankfully no one was actually killed or wounded badly. I did want to, on a separate note, I wanted to ask you about more of the traffic situation. There was one of my constituents has had a reoccurring issue with crossing the street at Douglas on Main Street. The crosswalk seems to have some kind of circuit board issue or some kind of electronic issue, and there's another one at McGee's that seems to have, so these are outdated crosswalks. Can you just speak to it? I know Steve spoke
Steve's
to,
ordered the parts, yeah, we're just waiting for.
just waiting for them.
Yeah, they've been ordered.
Okay, and so that's what, all we're waiting for is just to get the
Just get
parts and then.
and then it'll be updated and we'll be working.
I noticed that a curb had been cut on Pleasant and
Just gotta wait for the striping company to come in, we'll get them all striped.
Gotcha. And I did also want to just suggest, as you're kicking around ideas with Steve and, you know, as the rest of the crew is kind of putting their 2 cents in, I don't think that speed bumps, the longer ones, should be ruled out because they don't actually adversely affect, from what I've gathered, they don't adversely affect snow plowing. If, maybe you can speak to the contrary, but I just think those should be
No, the
included.
plow over, I mean, it creates a little bit of an issue, you gotta know they're there, otherwise, you know,
Right.
when you're plowing, you're gonna, you know, even at 20 miles an hour, it's gonna bounce the plow pretty good. But yeah, I mean, it's, but, you know, if you know they're there, they're not as bad.
And, I mean, I think the rumble strip sounds like a good idea, but I think that a speed bump of that size, especially like on a Pleasant or a Washington, is gonna make it easier. From what I gather, it's not that easy to cross the street on a lot of the main roads. So once you're on the outside trying to get in, it's hard to get in here. And then if you're on the inside trying to get out, it's hard to get across. So hopefully we can find solutions to that over the long run, but I don't think you should rule out the long speed bump. Thank you.
Vice President Ruggiero.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to echo, I guess, what both of my colleagues have said here so far. First of all, thank you for your above and beyond efforts responding to the fire.
I really wanna stress this was a team effort, like,
No,
it's
and
everybody,
you,
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
I,
I
you
happen to be
know,
the person here, but I'm
you-
telling you, it was a team effort, it was
Yeah.
everybody.
and I think this, you know, when over 100 people were displaced and affected, it does take a team effort, and
Yeah.
so, you know, thank you for leading the team, I guess, yeah.
Oh, you're welcome, but yeah, it's the team, for sure.
As far as traffic goes related to some of these larger projects, where are we, I guess, specifically? Just, I know you said we have some easements and some things to vote on at our next meeting, but what is a realistic timeline that folks can expect to have road closures on Revere Street and then again on Crest and Grover's for that extension? I mean, just so that folks listening now can at least start to mentally prepare.
Well, we're doing the work at night.
Right, for
the
Crest
water
and
main
Grover.
work, the work we're doing, so that's what we bid it, that's where it came in a little higher, so that's gonna be done at night, which will minimize the traffic disruptions. The next phase of that will be National Grid coming in to finalize their work on Revere Street, which will, that will definitely be advertised, and we'll get that out. And then after that, once that work's done and shuts down in the fall, then it's waiting until the spring when the Mass DOT comes in and starts the Revere Street project. That's the last leg of that.
Okay.
So, and that'll be once that schedule will be out, and we'll have a
So
regular
this,
updates on that.
this spring 23, I guess.
It's gonna be all town work, it's,
Okay.
water, drainage, water and, relining the water line, mains, all the work that you guys have already approved, all that loan, the loan money and
Sure.
things like that, getting all that done, and then National Grid finishing up their piece of work on Revere Street.
the
that
end of
they-
Revere.
All
Okay.
the other disruptions that the patches we drive over on the way and
Exactly.
finishing all that up, yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
yeah, and that work's gotta be done first, obviously, before we do the final
Can tie
repaving
anything
and
else in.
Mass DOT come in and work their magic, so.
Fair enough, thanks.
You're welcome.
Council Belcher.
Thank you. Everyone's already mentioned it, the traffic safety stuff. I know that TSAC have been talking about a overall townwide engineering study on where to put crosswalks. I think now might be a good time to think about that. I know down the point, there's a lot of areas that are speedways and places we could use crosswalks, so it'd be good to think about that beyond just the speed radar signs on 145.
Some of the things too we consider when we do crosswalks is to think about bump outs, cause it's not, a lot of the times it's the distance, right? It's not just where you cross, it's how long you have to cross, so if you put the bump outs, it improves, the sight line, and lets people know you're coming, and you're not standing out in between two cars to get out there, you're actually on a safety
Yeah.
bump, but again, it turns out plowing, people don't like to see them for that reason, but they definitely make it safer.
And that's something for people to remember in general. There's a lot more that goes into a decision to place a crosswalk where it is than just people cross the street here, let's put a crosswalk. So that's just something that's come up. I just want to follow up on the DOT presentation we had a while ago about the bike lane painting on Bennington Street. Have you heard any updates on that?
No, I can find out though, but I don't have any update on that.
And then,
Just to clarify, that's the Bennington Street from the old gasket factory down to Beachmont, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
not Wood Island to the
Yes.
Heights.
Is it a
Sorry.
bike lane or Sharrows or what is it?
well, they
No,
wanted to like paint it.
Right, this is gonna be supposedly a one-day fixed for them, test or whatever, and they're gonna paint some lines to make that street from where the old casket company is basically down towards the Beachmont School.
Yep.
And it's going to be one-way in both directions with some bike lanes, I believe, is how he presented it to us.
Okay.
I mean, we had questions, I think, especially July and August now, once these tunnels close. I still don't think people realize the magnitude of how that's going to affect people's lives. And that's why personally, I would have rather to wait until that was done, because a lot of people now go down through Beachmont up
Right.
to Revere Beach Parkway and then
Yeah.
either over the bridge, or through Charlestown back into Boston that way, so.
Yep.
Anyway,
What's that?
Council Flockhart?
Piggybacking on what Councilor Aiello said, thank you, Council President. There's been traffic disruptions going on along Revere Street and up in the Highlands for over a year now. And I'm a transcript reader too, and I have never seen anything to warn anybody up there what's going to happen, when it's gonna happen, how long it's going on. And every day, it seems like there's a new detour for which roads are closed because of the construction. So communication would be very helpful.
All right, moving on. The CDICR did not meet since our last meeting. I believe they're meeting May 10th, maybe?
So, yeah.
May 10th? Old business, Winthrop Beach access points, we are leaving that on. We are still awaiting, Denise?
Yes.
Yeah?
Halfway there, almost
yep.
got, I actually talked to someone.
MBTA review, there, we have a meeting, myself and town manager and Representative Turco tomorrow, to start a discussion there on potentially different access points or routes throughout Winthrop. Town council employee evaluation forms.
Mr. President,
Oh,
just
sure,
quick, who from the T's attending that, do you know? Have they said that?
I could tell you,
Yeah, it's on my calendar, hold on.
give me 1 second.
Turco set that up, right?
Mm-hmm,
Adam and Ramon?
yep.
I don't know if you know Adam.
I think he's bus operations.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Don't let her, don't tell her where the meeting is.
Town council employee evaluation form, Councilor Belcher had talked about them. Any other update that you'd like to
Nope.
say about it? Nope. And just also on the ordinance review, we didn't have it on here, but we've asked Attorney Sabaleta to get us some information by the end of May, so we can be aware of how, hopefully it will be presented to us early in June of our options, and to get the stuff onto the
Ballot.
ballot, along with starting the process, which we hope to have also on certain ordinances like the Airbnbs and transient lodging and such that we had still discussed, and the use variance also.
Yeah.
So we will hopefully have a packet by the end of May that we can go over and be more informed on as we talk about it in June. Councilor Aiello.
But just, there's, in my mind, and I could be thinking about this incorrectly, there's, with respect to the transient use ordinance, there's revisiting the ordinance itself. There is the notion of understanding what the outsource market has available to us in terms of capabilities and costs to monitor this stuff on our behalf, the kinds of services they have. And then being informed by what that is, we would need, and this may be within the ordinance or outside of the ordinance review, a new fee structure for annual registrations as well as penalties for violations, right? So if we could be talking about all three of them in some kind of unified effort
There's
in
also gonna be
June, that would be great.
potential changes, code, potential,
Yeah.
offered up potential code changes.
Code changes as well.
What we have probably isn't adequate, to try to
Yeah.
streamline with what's going on out there and, how to better control it, so.
Okay, yeah, it would be good, once we're through with the budget, to be able to really spend a lot of time with this during the summertime period and have something.
But
new
that's
for
what
the
we're
fall.
working on, that was the other thing,
Okay.
is some not a la carte, but like options, like you can make this code change, and see what, appetite the council has, and see what kind of impacts that would have.
Okay,
And, that as well as what we're looking at. so.
yeah, but don't forget the outsource.
No, I got that I'm working on, I've got 3 or 4 companies I'm
Okay.
talking to, so.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, moving on to new business. As the charter states, we are to be presented with a budget formally by the town manager in a manner consistent of the time frame that we are at right now. So the clock will start running, and we have 45 days when presented to vote on a budget. So I will give the floor to the town manager.
Thanks, Council President. This budget that I presented to the council is also available on our website. There's a PDF link there with a tabbed table of contents, so you can click on each section. It will take you right to the individual sections with regard to different departments, budget summaries, debt, enterprise funds, capital plan, et cetera, et cetera. This budget was distributed, it's already, the draft version of this was already sent out to the Finance Commission. They've had a few meetings on it already. We've got another one this week, and we'll continue to have them throughout the month of May. It's a little different format. This is the Governor's Finance and Officers Association, GFOA, for lack of a better word, format of a budget. So it's, it has the introduction section with the budget message. It also leans into, the town has copied the town charter in there as well. The budget summary section, which gives a detailed view of all the revenues and expenses, for the town, and a little explanation of what they are. And then it gets into the departments, starts with the executive officer, runs through all the different departments. That's also indexed on the website with the PDF. and that'll take you to each different section. There's and inside each section, incorporated with the GFOA format, there's a mission statement for the department, a breakdown of the org chart for the department, goals and objectives for that year, accomplishments, and then significant budget changes and initiatives, programs and services that they offer, a personnel summary, and then any sort of changes, personnel notes in there with regard to any sort of new staffing requirements or requests. The other section there is a debt section in there, which breaks down all the debt for the town, what's left, what the debt's for. Certainly you can answer any questions on that. And then there's the enterprise fund section. There'll be some new inserts that we put in the books that we give to the council tonight. There's the expenses, and the different enterprise funds follow the same format as the other departments with regard to a mission statement, goals, objectives, FTEs, things like that. But there's also a revenue section in there for them on top of the expenses. So, how the budget's gonna be spent and then whether we anticipate the revenue's gonna come from, that's in there as well. The capital plan, thank you to the capital plan subcommittee. We did a lot of great work on that, though that capital plan is in there with the funding recommendations from my office for FY '24. In the end, it also has a proposed paving resurfacing locations for FY '24 and the sidewalk repairs. And then at the end is just an appendices, and that just lists all sort of different acronyms and abbreviations and terms that, people may not be familiar with if they don't deal with municipal finance on a regular basis. This format that's, been well received when I've used it in the past, and I hope the council enjoys it, and then certainly you can answer any questions if they have on it as you start to dig into it. I did send this out, the PDF version, to the council when we sent it to the Finance Commission, so you've had a chance to take a brief look at it. And as required in the charter, we've also got the budget summary going into the transcript this coming week, so look for that as well.
And I will say, and I'll let questions come up, but I think the format is very well done. It's an easy read. I don't know, you said the council would enjoy it. I don't know how much. The use of verbiage might be off a little bit, but no, it's very well organized. Again, we encourage councilors as well as citizens to go to finance committee meetings. They're finance commission meetings, which I think are every Thursday night at least through the end of the budget cycle, and they're very informative. It really gives a deep dive into a lot of the stuff that we almost superficially kind of take a look at in some levels at the council. And this Thursday night, May 4th, the Finance Commission will be, along with Town Manager and the CFO, I believe, taking a deep dive into the capital plan to get into the nitty-gritty, to answer a lot of the questions that people have been asking about the capital plan. So I thank you for that. And, overall, it's like every other year, right? It's a challenge. You have to try to fit a round peg into a square hole sometimes, but I think I thank you on behalf of the council for submitting a document that is worthy of the town and worthy of the effort you put in. Questions? Councilor Aiello?
I agree, it's a terrifically
Good
readable
read.
piece and organized well, so, no, seriously, it's a nice looking document. My question is, from the council perspective, I assume are we gonna be talking about subsections of the budget at each of the meetings in order to sort of get a digestion of all this stuff, or how do you intend to keep the dialogue going?
The Finance Commission goes section by, literally page by page, line by line through the whole document. The council will not do that. The council will have a public hearing on June 6th, and we will more than likely continue that public hearing to give the public another opportunity, another bite at the apple, say on June 13th before we vote on it. There will be a summary document in the transcript this week. But again, the nitty-gritty is really done through the Finance Commission, and on June 6th at the first public hearing, we will have the chairman of the Finance Commission along with members come in and present all their findings and their thoughts and concerns and suggestions. They might have, in the past, there's been anywhere from 8 to 15 recommendations, and it could be a physical recommendation. It could be something for the future to think about. It could be the schools and how we think that they need more funding to meet a needs-based, and how we might think about getting there. But the nitty-gritty of the budget is done through the Finance Commission, which is again, our finance subcommittee, along with the Citizens Finance Group. And those meetings are very informative. They are on Zoom, I believe. And they are held every Thursday night at 6. I know the room is secure for them through June. So that's where the nitty-gritty of the budget will go, and the councilors will also have an opportunity to make amendments, adjustments, corrections, suggestions, whatever they deem, on the 13th or even on the 6th.
6th and 13th.
6th and the 13th, and the council would be voted on, the budget would be voted on the 13th.
Okay, great, thank you.
Council Munson?
Thank you, Council President. Go ahead.
Obviously,
Sorry,
you know, if any
Councilman.
questions come up, you wanna
Yeah.
come into my office, meet
Yeah.
for an hour, go over whatever section, I'm
Yeah,
always
no,
available.
I was just looking at, there's a difference between, I appreciate it, between each of us asking individual questions and then a deliberation
Right.
of the entire council, so we can get the perspective of others, but those are the two dates.
And I don't think it's unusual at all for council to have a suggestion or a thought or an amendment to propose. And whenever that amendment is proposed, we always have to understand there has to be a debit and a credit. We can't just say we want to give money to ABC department. We have to find out where we're going to get that money to give to. But, Council Munson.
Going on that same thought, it's at June 6th, it's probably, or the June 13th is not the time to propose anything. You're basically there to yay or nay something, I would
Yes, you could-
imagine.
You're more than welcome to make an amendment on June 13th as well.
Oh, you are?
You are welcome to make an amendment.
Yeah, I would like to think that we would have done our homework before then, so we don't have any last-minute surprises on debits and credits, but,
So that's why we're changing it, where we're having a public hearing before we vote on it to give us an opportunity, and we're gonna have the Finance Commission in a little earlier too, so it gives us an extra meeting, basically, to look at it.
Right.
And to digest all that they do, because they, again, the amount of work that the Finance
It's
Commission
very
does
granular.
is
Yeah.
incredible.
My comment wasn't really about that. It was actually more of a question. In the past, I remember seeing the budget somewhere in the vicinity, and it might be because of the new format, but there's a huge discrepancy from the past to now. Can you just give on a high-level reason why it went from somewhere in the vicinity of 70 million for a total budget to somewhere in the high 50s?
No, I think when you're
You're
looking
thinking
at
of
that
the
number,
enterprise
that doesn't account for the enterprise
You
funds.
add
The
Okay.
enterprise funds are usually around $14 million.
So when we're doing these budget summary, it doesn't include the
No, that's
enterprise?
the operating.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah,
I will
Coun-
point out, hold on a
Any
second.
consideration of starting earlier on the 6th?
To have a public hearing
Start at
starting
6,
earlier?
yeah,
Oh, to start the meeting
Yes,
earlier?
Yeah, 6 instead of 7.
Yes, hopefully we'll be starting all the meetings at 6. Yes, we can absolutely do that.
So the bigger point is, I'm just trying to say that when reading budgets of the past to now, the format shouldn't change the overall numbers per se. It's just basically how it's been organized. And so, okay, I just wanted
But
to make
still in
sure.
that 70 million range, yeah, when you
Right.
add in the enterprise fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, the budget, again, through, since the 80s with Proposition 2.5, the budget goes up about 2.5% plus new growth and such, unless there's something unordinary coming in. So the $70 million range is basically where we've been at, up a little bit each year, inclusive of everything, including the enterprise funds, the operating budget, schools. Vice President Ruggiero.
Just real quick, as a new member to the FinCom scene, I guess you could say, these are really, I think, interesting and important meetings for both the public and the rest of the council to attend. You really do, you have the opportunity to interview department heads, the town managers at all the meetings as well. So, there's really fruitful discussion. So, Councilor Munson, to your point about surprises, there are more than enough opportunities, I think, for folks like us, or even from the public, to have their opinion heard, so that there aren't any surprises last minute. I think this is a long process. There's ample opportunity to kind of have your opinion heard or make your argument yay or nay or something in between leading up to it. So, there's definitely something to be said about being prepared, and I definitely understand that point. But I encourage you all to join Councilor Belcher and Councilor Fusillo and myself at these meetings. So,
Well, thank you again, Tony, for giving us a budget in a timely manner. We appreciate that, and I'm sure everyone will be reading it thoroughly starting this evening. Town Council proclamations. There have been 2 proclamations submitted by Vice President Ruggiero. I could read it, or that's okay with Vice President Ruggiero? Okay. The first one is a proclamation submitted by Vice President Ruggiero, a proclamation recognizing Pride Month. A lot of whereases and where is, but just whereas the Winthrop Town Council recognizes that June is Pride Month, a time to celebrate the diversity of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, and other gender identifies and sexual orientations community, and whereas the Stonewall riots, as known as at the Stonewall Uprising, which took place in New York City in June 1969, marked a turning point in the LGBTQIA+ rights movement and inspired a new era of activism, and whereas, in honor of the 1969 Stonewall Uprising and the subsequent First Pride March in New York City in June 1970, millions of Americans across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the nation regularly celebrate an advance made by and the diversity of the LGBTQIA+ community, and raise awareness of the ongoing struggles of the community each June. And whereas the town of Winthrop recognizes and celebrates the many contributions of the LGBTQIA+ community and strives to continue to create a welcoming and inclusive environment for all residents and visitors, and whereas the town of Winthrop recognized the accomplishments of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as the first state in the region to legalize same-sex marriage in 2004, and the Commonwealth's continued promotion and fostering of the LGBTQIA+ community, and whereas, as proclaimed by the federal government, we recognize the valuable contributions of the LGBTQIA+ individuals to American society and culture, and we reaffirm our commitment to standing in solidarity with the LGBTQ+ Americans in their ongoing struggle for full equality. And whereas the Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, stated in Governor Charlie Baker's 2017 Pride Month proclamation press release, Pride Month is an invaluable opportunity to recognize the gains we've made in ensuring civil rights and to celebrate LGBTQ culture and to reflect on the work ahead of us. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Winthrop Town Council that June 2023 shall be recognized as Pride Month in the town of Winthrop, and that we encourage all residents to join in celebrating the LGBTQIA+ community. And further, be it proclaimed that in recognition of Pride Month, the town of Winthrop authorizes the town administration to fly the LGBTQIA+ pride flag to represent all members of the LGBTQIA+ community and all of their intersectionalities from June 5th, 2023 through from June 5th, 2023 through June 18th, 2023, consistent with town policy. Again, that proclamation is coming from Vice President Ruggiero. And just for a clarification on the dates that people are wondering why it's not June 1st to the 14th, there'll be a Winthrop Town event hosted by Senator Lydia Edwards on, I believe, the 17th at Ingleside Park. So this will still have give the town the ability to fly it during the 17th instead of starting from the 1st to the 14th and then having it not being flown. So again, this proclamation comes from Vice President Ruggiero. Is there a second on the proclamation? Second by Councilor Belcher. Any discussion on the proclamation? Councilor Flockhart.
Did the Commission on Diversity, Inclusion, and Community have input into these proclamations? Are we gonna have problems with that commission again?
The town policy states that it's the council's decision.
But they did raise the issue that they are the committee for this kind of thing, and they weren't brought into it when we set up the flag policy. And now we're doing something else and not getting their input.
So, yeah, the flag policy, according to the flag policy, we don't need, and we probably shouldn't have, the opinion from outside sources on these things, so.
Thank you, Councilor Flockhart. Councilor Munson.
Two-part question. One, I love all the historical and quotes, and it was just a pretty well-written proclamation, except one part. What flag is it that you guys, that was proclaimed to be approved by this proclamation?
It's the one that represents the LGBTQIA plus.
So the most current one, the most, and it's the most, okay, gotcha. And then, now, anywhere in this proclamation, I didn't see anywhere where it needs to be procured, but I would assume by making this proclamation, it's assumed that the town manager would have the right to go and get it.
Yeah, and I think any funding would come through the council, or if there was a need for that type of thing, yeah.
Right.
We'll take care of it, but we'll have it.
Whoever makes the proclamation usually pays for it, so.
You read it. You read it.
We'll be here, no worries.
Yes.
The polls will be too?
Polls will be in, the foundations for the polls are
Voting's already
in.
been
The
poured.
polls should be in by the end of next week.
Great, thank you.
And we have a fun story. I won't tip the hat, but we have a fun story around. when
Little
the polls
history
were poured.
story.
Yeah, some little history, so it's all good.
Anybody? Okay, discussion is now closed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Vice President Ruggiero also had submitted a second proclamation, a proclamation recognizing Juneteenth. Whereas Juneteenth is a historical celebration that commemorates the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in the United States and the recognition of the end of slavery in Texas on June 19th, 1865. And whereas Juneteenth is a day to honor the contributions of African Americans to our society, to celebrate their culture, and to recognize the ongoing struggle of racial inequity. And whereas on June 17th, 2021, President Biden signed into law 475, the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, which designates Juneteenth National Independence Day as a legal public holiday. And whereas the town of Winthrop understands the impact of hate and discrimination all too well, as evidenced by the hate crime that occurred in our community on June 26, 2021, that took the lives of David Green and Ramona Cooper. And whereas the town of Winthrop recognizes the importance of celebrating and supporting the African American and Black communities, and acknowledges that we must continue to work towards full equity for all the members of our community, regardless of their race or ethnicity. And whereas, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one life begins to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the Winthrop Town Council extends its support in the celebration of Juneteenth and encourages all residents to join in the commemoration and recognition of the many contributions of our African American and Black neighbors, friends, and family members. We urge our community to come together to support and uplift the African American and Black communities in Winthrop, to stand in solidarity against all forms of racism and discrimination, and to work together to be a more just, equitable, and inclusive society for all. We call upon all citizens to celebrate the diversity and strength of our community, and to continue working towards a future where everyone can live without fear, prejudice, or discrimination. Further, be it proclaimed that in recognition of the federal holiday of Juneteenth, the Town Council authorizes the Town Administration to fly the Juneteenth flag on the holiday, June 19th, 2023. Submitted by Vice President Stephen Ruggiero. Is there a second for that? Seconded by Councilor Aiello. Discussion on this motion. And again, I just want to take a minute to thank Councilor, and these are coming to us in May because we want to be prepared, right? We have 2 meetings left, and you want to be prepared, and as Councilor Munson said, we want to make sure we want to fly these flags, we want to make sure we have these flags. But I thank Vice President Ruggiero for his initiative in this, and for his major role in creating a flag policy, so thank you for that. Any discussion on this motion? Councilor Munson?
I too want to thank those involved, and I know Councilor Belcher was involved as well, and I think we've all been kind of anxiously awaiting this. I think that it's kind of one of those things that Winthrop was a little past due on in comparison to other towns, but I applaud the efforts. I did have a logistical question, though, in terms of this proclamation, another one that I probably should have asked previously. It doesn't include annually doing it. So that means we have to create a proclamation every year, just like this, to be able to raise the flag again next year?
Yeah. You know, the intent, I believe, doing it annually is so that current councils aren't binding future councils on these types of decisions. And that sort of, yeah, the sentiment or the, yeah.
You did set the bar high with all the great verbiage around it, so I do applaud you there, and I do think it's a wonderful thing. I did notice it was one day, and I think that's as opposed to the 14, and so I just wanted to note that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
It's a national holiday. I think the thought there was that it's a national holiday and that, you know, like, whatever happens to be 4th of July, Easter, Thanksgiving, it's, you know, you don't keep the turkey up after Thanksgiving for the most part. You take the flag down. So I think, again, Vice President Ruggiero for his thought on that. All right, Councilor Ayala.
Yeah, just add my thanks to the councilors for the great work. It was very well researched, very well articulated. I think it's terrific. And tangentially, I want to say, particular to this one, I was a skeptic about the fit of the trees in the area of the tragedy from 2 years ago. And now that I see them in place, boy, Bob Carroll had me all flanked, and they really, those people really did have a sense of design, and I think it's going to be quite the tribute as those things grow. So thanks for getting all those trees put in place, but really remarkable.
Can I make one last point, Council President?
Yes.
I just wanted to note that both of the proclamations were in celebration and support of nationally and state-recognized holidays. And so with that being said, some of the ideas that have been brought to my attention may not pass the muster. So I think that is something worthy of note, and it's also a bar that we should recognize going forward.
I think, you know, we said this before, but we're not really blazing any trails here with either of these. I think these things happen quite frequently across the Commonwealth and across the nation. And, you know, I mean, to your point, I think these are pretty, you know, well-recognized opportunities, I would say.
All right, seeing no further discussion, bring this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Unanimous decision. Thank you very much. Special municipal employees. So this is something that has kind of been brought to our attention. It's something that many other municipalities have done. It just, what it does is it puts a designation on all committee members, board members of a special employee. It gives that person the ability, if we have somebody on a board and they work for the state, for example, and there's a thought, can they do two things? This gives them the ability to do that. I'm going to pass this to the town manager for a better explanation and a clearer explanation for that and how we would proceed from here. It's just a simple vote of the council.
Yeah, it's a board and committee members. I mean, it lists the whole,
It
you know,
lists all.
verbiage in there. I won't get into it, but it's, it ties back to the conflict of interest law, you know, whether elected, appointed, paid or unpaid. You know, you wanna, when you have part-time or unpaid municipal employees, designate as special municipal employees, so they can not only hold this position, but, you know, in the case of people that maybe work for the state, or I had this when I first started in this business. I was a part-time building inspector in one town and a full-time in another town. So they needed to label me as a special municipal employee since I work part-time there and get a ruling from ethics. So I mean, that's where these come up, and that's where this list. Every town has one. I was honestly surprised we didn't already have one in place, and we, you know, add and subtract members. It comes into play when maybe a board member wants to be a soccer coach, and, you know, those kind of things. So that's where it comes into play. Part-time, you know, positions that only work the certain number of hours, they say less, you know, approximately, you know, less than 20 hours per week, you know, blah, 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 800 hours for the year. So those kind of things. And, you know, for instance, you know, we have members that, you know, work for the state that are on our finance commission, things like that. So this allows them to do both and gives them a coverage. So if anybody that wants to say there's a conflict of interest, having this list will allow you to say, no, these have been labeled as special municipal employees, not in violation of the conflict of interest law, and it is allowed. So.
And this is something that many municipalities already have in place.
Oh, they're, yeah, long-standing lists, and they, sometimes they sit stagnant for years, and you go back and say, oh, okay, this person's not here, this, you know, this person's moved on, you know, so we have to, you know, update it from time to time, which we will, so.
So this is new business, does not have to be voted on tonight if we have a unanimous consensus. It can be voted on tonight, totally up to the discretion of the council. Yeah, Councilor Aiello.
Move to establish consent.
Thank you very much. Is there a second for that? Second. All that, so now we're going to vote for the ability to vote on it. I just want 100% proclamation that we can do this in new business. That being said, roll call vote, please.
Counsel Honig? Counsel Fusillo? Counsel Munson?
Yes.
Counsel Belcher?
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco? Counsel Flockhart?
Yes.
Counsel Aiello?
Yes?
Vice President Ruggiero?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes. Now, I have a motion. Can I have a motion to allow the town of Winthrop to have a special municipal employee designation for our board and committee members? A motion by Councilor Aiello, second by Councilor Belcher. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Middle school site plan, I did get a copy. We have had a site plan done by Grady Consulting. It is a stamped site plan. It is the beginning. It is moving forward towards some type of action and eventual closure on that middle school site that's been there for an inordinate amount of time. This plan doesn't really tell us anything we didn't already know, but I guess it confirms what we thought we knew. What I am asking the town manager to do is to look into the possibility of getting stringent pricing on the demolition of the middle school and the auditorium. We will also look at the possibility of, making motions if we need to adjust these plot lines to, depending on what we want to do. But if the town manager wishes to speak, if there were any surprises to him on this site plan.
No, other than, the lot lines will definitely, depending upon what you want to do there, will need to be reconfigured. And then depending upon what you end up doing there, obviously the parkland issue's been brought up. If you want to do anything that's outside of the limits of that, you'd have to go to the legislature and things like that. But, that'll all be worked out depending upon how you decide to move forward on the land, so.
For example, just like an interesting characteristic, like the plot line extends out to basically home plate in the first
Right,
base
exactly.
line of the existing baseball field. I mean, it's relatively minor stuff, but gives us a starting point. And I hope it takes us less than 8 years to get to the next point. But, we do have a couple thoughts in mind that we hope to get to the council in the near future to have it vetted out and to take a look at it. But this is a start, and hopefully providing a clean site is always a plus. And I know the town manager's looking for grants possibility to help us out with that and looking at all avenues. So this will, the middle school site, I guess, will stay on the agenda for until I'm gone.
Awesome.
And the public ways side, again, we brought it up at the last meeting. This needs much more vetting in terms of what I've asked the town manager to do is to get us a proper list of all the public ways we have. And then I'd like us to take a look at the cost and to maintain them properly and to keep them secure. And to look, and maybe there becomes a policy where if there's a request, it's taken up individually, or maybe the council comes up with a policy that, no, we're going to maintain every public way as is, but, the town has, I believe the town has an onus to maintain them properly and to limit any liability we might have. So it's obviously, at some point, it's a costly endeavor to do that, but I think we would be remiss. A lot of people have a lot of, valid points that it keeps character of the town, and they offer a lot. And there were people on the other side that have good points that these aren't being maintained, our privacy is being evaded, and we want to clean this up. So this is not a one-night discussion. This is just another agenda item that I think needs to be vetted out. I don't know what that number is. I don't know, honestly, if it's 10 or if it's 50 or if it's 100. But I know there were many in the Highlands area. There were many along the Court Road area. There were many down the Point area. So, I mean, I think this is something that we need to get a good grip on. you know, as in public ways in general. Sometimes they open up a can of worms, but it's better to open them up and deal with them than just let them fester. Counselor Aiello?
I could be wrong, but I recollect a couple of years ago, I'm thinking about maybe 5 years ago, there was an attempt to create an inventory of these things. Have you seen anything in the files?
I'll
There
look.
was a discussion
There
about
was an
it in a
attempt, but I
meeting.
don't think it ever.
Never happened.
We do?
Yeah.
We do have a list.
Oh, we have a list, okay. There we go.
We have a full list,
List of private ways.
which
Well, we have private ways, but that's streets too, but is
Yeah.
it also?
is the private ways of
Are these the
Right,
cut-through?
different than a public way.
Did we get a link
public, yeah.
to that, or?
Private ways are like.
Yeah, these are the private ways, like, you know, yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah, the private ways of the streets that are obviously, it's another issue, right, that, you know, another can of worms, right?
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause
People that
Because one way or
technically-
another, we need an inventory.
Yeah.
Right, you
and
need an
we
inventory
need-
just to have it anyway.
Yeah, and
but
even
you
the
need it to-
dimensions of things, like in
Paths,
my neighborhood.
Oh, the paths are there?
Stairways.
Some of the
Yep.
pathways are actually larger than I think what we're entitled to as a town, and then some of them have been encroached on, right? So, and it's just random.
Yeah.
And there were some very minor ones, like, I think between Bartlett and Woodside
In
Park.
Woodside, yeah.
There's a couple of small pathways.
Yeah,
then
and one's
there's some
really
which
big,
did-
which I
right.
think is much bigger than originally, than we actually own, and the other one seems to have gotten crowded in. My guess is I bet they're probably the same legal size, but just patterns.
Years have been improved.
Is there
Saved me
any,
a lot of footsteps.
Counselor Munson?
is there any value in asking the public to participate and letting us know about some of the public ways?
Well, I think we have a good starting point
We have a
here.
good list,
And
and
it's,
some of the
it's an
paths are
ex-
listed on here as well,
extent-
like Summit Ave and a few of the other ones are on here, so.
So
Upstairs.
each of us could look in our district and talk to people and see if anything's missing or
Okay.
mischaracterized, and then help update
Once
it.
that list is public, then we can go ahead and check against it.
And we already walked Summit Ave, we took a look at it, and the chief and the police chief and the DPW director and I walked down there, and we did notice the staircase needed some work. Rep Turco was looking for some budget earmark ideas, so we threw in an idea for that, you know, throw some money to try to get the stairs fixed and do some work on that path this year.
But
So we'll see if we get it or not, but we did ask.
Counselor Munson? Counselor Munson?
I just wanted to finalize my point, which was, there is nothing on the table for being removed right now.
No.
That's where I just want no one to be alarmed or be alarmist about it, because we're not at that point, or even close.
No, what sparked it was we received a couple of requests for some of the people that live along the paths, who
Right.
requested to remove the easement and take the land, you know,
Right.
back so they could use it. Nothing, no action's been taken on that, but that's what started the conversation.
And there won't be any unless there's a public hearing or what have you. So
Yeah.
I think that people should just know that we're good for a while.
Counselor Flockhart?
Dave Hubbard had a list of them. He
Okay.
did an article in the transcript, and I believe the Chamber of Commerce has that article.
All right, good.
Vice President
Thank you.
Ruggiero?
I was just gonna say, it's kind of tough, because these aren't named like our streets are named. I mean, some of them have special designations, but it's not like, you know,
Right.
Main Street, Shirley Street. They're just these kind of like unnamed, unmarked pathways that,
I think most of them are named.
yeah, like they have like official, yeah. They're not, I don't know if they're on Google Maps, maybe.
Well, it must not be official.
Well,
Counselor Belcher?
Thank you. I was just gonna echo what Counselor Munson said, and this shouldn't alarm anybody. This is a good thing, and we're hopefully moving towards maintaining these in a meaningful way that preserves them over time. So,
Counselor Aiello?
I was gonna suggest naming opportunities.
Aiello Way.
Ruggiero hardly ever, never mind.
Aiello Alley.
ILO 1, ILO 2.
Okay. Why don't we go to a second round of public comment? Yes, John?
Hi, John Morgan, Precinct 4. I'd like to go back on the signs for the speed limits. Just got as many signs as you have in town. People have to look at them to know what the speed limit is, and they don't always look. The most clearest message I got when I drove many years ago was a set of blue lights in my rearview mirror. That gave me a reason to listen and to obey. So I wish there was more enforcement for that. And I have a lot more thoughts, but my head is racing, so I'm gonna sit down. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. I remember to this day, and it was, I don't know, 45 years ago, that I got my first speeding, or not speeding ticket, didn't come to a complete stop going on to the Revere Beach Parkway, and to this day, I've never seen another officer there, but to this day, I know when to stop. So you're absolutely right with that. Yes, Suzanne?
Suzanne Swoll, Precinct 4. I did want to talk a bit about the crosswalks. I counted the number of crosswalks. I spent some time on Reed Street, usually because my daughter's there, but I think there's 14 crosswalks between Seal Harbor and Reed Street. And that's a lot of crosswalks because there's a lot of parked cars. So what's happening sometimes is that people will start to walk, or you can't see them as easily because cars are parked very near those crosswalks. So Tony, when you think about those, think about where we can park there too, because I made the mistake
Yeah.
with blue lights behind me on continuing to drive the speed limit, but I didn't see the person that was standing between two parked cars.
Right.
And the policeman said, well, they're starting to cross the street. And I was, I know this is being recorded, but I was afraid to say I didn't see them, because I thought that would be worse. But it's true, I mean, truly, that's what happens when you park too close to those. So it's
I agree.
just a comment.
I know there was a raised hand on Zoom.
Karen?
Karen?
And we'll get back.
Okay, we have Karen? Could you unmute it?
Yes, all set.
Hi, Karen Charles, Precinct 2. I wasn't gonna say anything, but now I'm getting confused. You're talking about public ways. I thought those were the small pathways or large pathways, whichever you wanna call, that ran between properties that had access like to the water. Or in the case of the one that I know that runs from Herman Street down to Walden, those stairs, it was for access to get to the old narrow gauge. Is that what we're talking about? Are we
That is,
talking
no, we,
about-
yes, that's what we're talking about. We are not talking about private ways like Walden Place or something like that. We're talking about public
Paths,
ways,
yeah.
pathways,
Right,
stairways.
Because now you could bring into, and I'm sure Councilor Belcher is aware of this, all the paper streets down the point that lead up to the beach. I mean, I remember her telling me one time she was out doing the census, and she never heard of some of these streets and had to find them all by herself. And all they were was a house on the sand. But I hope we're not gonna start getting involved in that kind of stuff. I thought we were just gonna be looking at
No, no, no.
public ways.
Yeah, those are private ways, Karen, right? And we're looking at public access points, I guess, like going down to the beach on Court Road, or going through, from one street to another up the Highlands, or like you said, going from Walden to Herman, or Herman to Walden, either way. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's what we're looking at, not the private ways.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jack?
Jack Dowd, Precinct 1. Concerning the pathways and the stairways. I've worked on 3 houses in the last 3 years that have directly next to pathway or stairway. And all 3 of them are uniquely different. But one thing they have in common, and it's just 3 that I know of. I'm not talking about, I don't know, there might be 20 of them, but I know of 3 as the customers. What I mentioned was the storage pipes that are underneath the 3 that I know of. So I'm not concerned about the others that I don't know, just the 3 that I know, because I have the customers, and they have concerns about the storage pipes going back 30 years. So the cost of replacing a storage pipe is found on the homeowner. It's come from the homeowner's house to the main in the street. Some of these pipes, take some of that for example, is there's a couple hundred feet, or maybe 150 feet, under the path, down the stairs, to the sewage pipe at Saginaw. So, we're going on Court Road, my relative's house, there was a sewage problem there 20 years ago, say. So it was tested, the sewage was tested by a relative. And they put the dye in the 4 houses at the top of the stairs because the town was questioning whether or not it was a sewage pipe. So after months, they put the red dye in on this side of the walkway and the next day on this side of it. So all 4 houses were connected to the sewerage pipes underneath the stairs in the pathways. There's another house in the Borden Street area that the sewage pipe goes from Borden Street to River Road. It's all downhill from Borden Street. So we don't know how many houses that are connected to that sewage pipe. There could be 1, or there could be a lot more. So those things have to be considered before you take any type of action. And that's going to be a considerable amount of time to do all this work. And the cost is borne on the homeowner to get from the house to the main. So all those things have to be considered before. And I told my customer, one customer, that you may not want to do it because you're going to be responsible for the sewage pipe, the sewage pipes to the main. That's a lot of money. It could be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And one of the sewage pipes goes through underneath people's pools, etc. And it's a distance of, I think, 300 feet. So the homeowners in that area are going to be responsible for that cost. That's that. Concerning the survey that I got, I would like to have the opportunity, as Mr. Aiello is going to have the opportunity to talk to the manager for an hour. I want to talk to the manager and Mr. Lettieri for an hour, or less, I hope it's a half hour, concerning the survey that has been proposed or has been shown for the property at 151 Pauline Street. There was no survey at 141 Pauline Street. So to sell 141 Pauline Street, you need needs and bounds. Same as for 150. I'm not discussing 150. That's coming really good. And going back to the pathways, I've given this information to different friends of mine to read over so I can discuss it with them before I discuss it with you. And for the pathways, the town should have a layout and taking, and the records of the layout and taking of land for these pathways should be in the records at the town clerk's office. I think you mentioned that you do have some of them, but those should be produced and let the public know, on each and every pathway or walkway where the boundaries are, so they can determine if you have 5 feet or 10 feet. Because a lot of this stuff, like Mr. Hill said, is, last year, a man bought a house on Gore Road and he didn't have the right to buy the house because the pathway to the ocean was, there was a pool on it and a fence on it. Well, the town council, voted to give him that land. I don't think that should happen again. But there's many different avenues to take, so I think in order for people to be informed, this list that Denise has should be established and published in the newspaper and on the town website. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Bill.
Bill Schmidt, Precinct 5, just to talk about the traffic. I wasn't familiar with that accident that happened just around 270.
270, between 270 and 280.
Yeah, so I know what's always struck me as dangerous, coming from Main Street to where that corner is near, is it Sergeant Street?
Yes.
cars come the other way and then they take a left turn, so you don't see them. And I don't know what can be done particularly about that, but that has always struck me as a dangerous, really dangerous part. So I'm not familiar how the accident happened, but that corner is dangerous. And the other thing, you were talking about the pathways and naming. I think there is one council already has a street named after her.
Yes, there is.
So you can leave her out if you can name it.
Anybody else on Zoom, Denise? All right. Moving on, public relations, upcoming events, May 17th. Winthrop Engages, the E.B. Newton Cultural Center, 6 to 8 p.m. Participants representing town boards, committees, or departments, contact Mary Lou Osborne at the Winthrop Public Library for more information. But just, the purpose of the gathering is to offer a space for interested community members to meet current Winthrop board, committee, and department members, and to consider volunteering to benefit the community. This is one way to harness the many talents of our community members. Departments could feature something special from their department. Example, the town clerk's office could offer a register to vote day. So this will be taking place again at the E.B. Newton Cultural Center from 6 to 8 p.m. on May 17th. And contact Mary Lou Osborne at the Winthrop Library for more information. Council Munson, anything?
I do have something to announce. The Odd Fellows has decided to provide a homemade lunch for the families that were displaced from the 91 Veterans Road fire, and we've also extended the invitation to all the first responders. I've spoken to Jane Rupp and to Lieutenant Sarko Gergerian, and they've already informed the police, fire, Action Ambulance, and the Clear team so that they will all be welcome to have a nice lunch on, not this weekend, but next Saturday, May 13th from 12 to 2. It just shows, just want to, express our empathy for the people that were displaced, and it's and for the first responders in the town for being there to protect our citizens. So I just, as a lodge, we're extending that lunch, and we are still looking for volunteers to deliver the food for those families that can't make it. So if anyone would want to reach me, they can reach me via my town email. So thank you very much.
Council Belcher?
Nothing.
Council Aiello?
Just a note that I was dragged against my will to go to the Independent Film Festival of Boston, which is in its 25th year, and I hadn't really paid attention to it, to see a film that was reported to me to be about East Boston's fight against Logan Airport. It was titled Never Be a Punching Bag for Nobody. And I got to tell you, Winthrop is prominently, in the Battle of Winthrop as well, was prominently prominent in that film, as well as a wonderful story about a local business person who has the boxing gym on Shirley Street, Sal Bartolo's gym. This is Sal Bartolo Jr. and his father, who was a world boxing champion. And it's just a remarkable story about individual families and the connectivity of Winthrop and East Boston, the attempt to protect the communities, our environment. I am told that in June it's going to be showing at the East Boston Library on Bremen Street. And as soon as I hear it, I'll let you know. But people should go watch it. It's just a wonderful piece of history, well done. So really came away glad I got dragged to it.
Thank you. Council Flockhart? Vice President Maggio?
Two things. One, the Winnock Run, Walk, and Roll it's finally here. This Sunday at Deer Island. You can come as early as 9:30 to register for the walk. The walk itself starts at 11 a.m. It's a great time. It supports a great cause. And I hope to see you there. The second thing is the rabies clinic came and went, and I just asked the clerk for a detailed readout on the events of the clinic.
It was awesome. I mean, I could not have asked for a better day.
Really, that's great.
Of dogs peeing, pooping. It was great. It was great.
How many dogs and cats will be vaccinated?
Geez, we had like 13 cats.
Okay.
and, Yeah, like 12 dogs.
Nice.
But we saw many, yeah, we saw a lot of good-looking dogs, wicked good-looking kitties.
Really, that's good, that's
It
good.
went well, everything went smooth. Very good.
Great, thank you.
Looking forward to next year. Yes, please. You will next year.
Well, I'm sure we are dying for an adjournment after that little conversation there. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Counselor Belcher, second by Counselor Munson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. This meeting is adjourned.